Hi everyone.
You live?
Yep, we are live.
I'm not sure. Are you sure you're alive? I'm pretty sure you're dead.
I mean I'm undead actually. Uh
Oh, okay.
yeah. I've been dead before, but now I was brought back to life. Necromancy and all that. Uh but yeah, it's a good day to be alive though. Are you alive, Calon?
Yeah. It took it. Um. Guess so. I think so. I mean, this could all just be a solipsistic bubble, and actually what we would call dead, but somehow still maintaining some sort of consciousness. The Matrix. Oh, there's always that.
Yeah. That is.
Regardless, this Matrix could do better with my hair. Like, stay nice hair. Okay. Anyhow. Alright, so what did you drag me from my snake hole for today?
Well, first of all, to tell you you have lovely hair. Stop beating yourself up. And the second, yeah, we've got somebody to address who is apparently unaware or doesn't care about the effects of their own rhetoric.
Oh, all right. Let's see. Who is this guy? Oh my. Call
Yeah,
me sir slash your majesty slash king.
yeah, yeah,
They not realize that saying sir slash majesty slash your king has already an implied gender to that. Like, those are masculine terms.
yeah,
Kind of funny. It's kind of funny because I've seen like transphobes do this quite a bit where they'll be like, oh, my pronouns are pirate and some other stupid thing. It's like you guys don't seem to realize that there's already a gendered idea behind those. Like the stereotypical pirate isn't stereotypically thought as female.
yeah. That's true. Well, and just for the record, I'm sure chat knows this already, but anybody that says this, no matter what they say, or no matter how much they pretend to be an ally in between, people that say this for people that are not in the trans community or not trans watching this later, this is a transphobic thing to do. Um,
Scary, because pronouns can be a form of assault, in
yeah,
particular, simple assault. Even though there isn't a law against misgendering, when you're just viciously misgendering a trans person, it can cause quite a lot of mental strain on what is on an oppressed person who is already having to deal with society. So, being part of the problem is a great way to end up needing to be solved. And needing to be solved can involve measures of various reciprocity.
oh yeah,
Yeah, that's right, Gainer. Attack in helicopter. It's just
yeah. No, it's the same.
when someone says that, you know they're being dishonest because if you actually study and look at what gender theory sort of says about all this, realize that's just another way of using. And they're also, by the way, whenever they do something like this, they're almost always going to be a map
Yeah,
and mask cis. That is because one of the ways that they do their masculinity. And yes, you can do a gender. A gender is actually something you do. One of the ways they do that is by asserting themselves over others and dominating others. That is what they're basically trying to do.
yep.
Thoughts, Katia?
Oh no, I completely agree. And if you're trans, you already know this. Every trans person knows this. But yeah, no, like, and like Helen said, it's technically not illegal, but it is violent. Like, causing someone severe mental distress. Um, like there's no other way to put that. Like, what else would that be? What's crazy about this is apparently this guy, Adam Kokesh, is very into non-violent communication. He makes a point that that's something he claims to practice. Um,
He really sucks at that, doesn't he?
Yeah. And I've had. Oh no, go ahead, Jan.
He really, not only does he suck at it, but also by doing this, the ironic thing is, and this is general rule for people who do this kind of trash, what they're trying to do is stroke their own masculinity. That's the key. They're trying to verify themselves as a masculine man, which you can actually even see where he's like, "Please call me Sir, Your Majesty / King." That's exactly. Those are all masculine titles. So really all it means is he's insecure in his own masculinity.
Which, if you look at the history of this guy, that shouldn't be too big of a surprise. Judging from some of the other stuff he's done. But yeah, a lot of this, what sprung a lot of this was he has a problem with Dr. Rachel Levine's position of power as Secretary of Health, because again, Adam Kokesh is an ANCAP. He would get mad and say, "No, I'm a voluntarist." There's no difference between those things, by the way. It's just pedantic.
Which, by the way, also makes him completely irrelevant. Like, generally, when it comes to ANCAPs, you can just ignore them. The only reason why we're really showcasing even this, though, is because it's a great example of failing to completely understand anything about how gender works.
Exactly.
Gender's complicated, but there's a certain degree of like, okay, well, you are a woman, therefore be her, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
To greater and lesser extents, because obviously social construct, things can be a bit fluid. It's though, like, you don't need to understand gender theory to be an ally necessarily. You just have to understand, hey, we exist, abuse us, etc. That's fine. Here, it's like the failure is ideological. Best way to put it, and he's trying to enforce the gender binary, which is the predominant ideology among this kind of crowd.
Absolutely. Yeah, and yeah, it's the whole thing. Like what started a lot of that is, the thing with Rachel Levine and stuff like that. Like Calon said, there's no reason to take Adam Kokesh seriously. Really, like he's actually been a lolcow for the left for quite a while. For anyone that knows about him, and that's a good thing, because you don't take ANCAP seriously, but this rhetoric.
I'm gonna buy this nuke.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna buy this nuke, and I'm just gonna use it on your property. Sorry, you didn't pay your protection fee this month.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, it's because it started out with him saying, "Hey, we shouldn't. We should respect." He did say we should respect Rachel Levine for being trans, but we shouldn't respect her position of power. Which, like, I am an actual anarchist. I understand wanting to abolish the state eventually, but like, there's actually this thing called COVID-19. I don't think you've heard of it. It's happening.
Well, there's not only this thing called COVID-19, but there's also this idea that in order to sort of break the systems, you have to gradually make progress towards doing that.
Yeah.
And the way to not make progress is to allow medical professionals in backwards areas to say, yeah, no, you're trans, so therefore you can go die in the street.
Yeah.
That's kind of not productive towards establishing a normative system of ethics for the medical community.
Exactly, which, ANCAPs believe in this weird distortion of freedom of association where bigotry is okay, apparently, as long as you're not physically hurting somebody or stealing their property, in quotes. But yeah, it's
Sustainable property, can I eat it?
Yeah. Private property does not exist. Personal property does. But that's a conversation for another day. but yeah, we also I like what my friend Victoria here engaged with him a little bit as well after he did the whole I'm the king thing, and I like what she said here, which well, given that I hate monarchies in general, am trans, a woman, and reverse oppression isn't a thing, I think y'all can read it. It's pretty great what she says here, but granted, Adam here decides to double down instead of, well, it's true that Victoria is being aggressive here. It's justifiably so, in my opinion. Because, well,
ultimately, against oppressors, any violence is justified.
Yeah, that's true. And then
when facing active oppression, and obviously any violence in Minecraft.
Right. Exactly.
We do not advocate violence in the streets. We just advocate it in Minecraft.
Same. Like it's anything's okay in Minecraft, so. But yeah,
exactly. I'm sorry.
Oh no, I was just gonna say everything. Yes, Victoria does have some funny quips in here, but everything she says is true about him, about Adam here. Like reverse oppression. That's not a thing. And like her being trans and everything, and then Adam comes by to say, to say that, yeah, well, you don't represent the trans community. I'm like, while Adam has been, and this is pretty gross, he's been jokingly, and we'll get to this later, but jokingly calling himself trans to escape transphobia because he thinks that's how it works. Apparently, he's not.
Apparently, he forgets that trans people can be transphobic.
Yeah.
And trans people who lie about being trans are even worse.
Yeah.
And yeah, Tony, that's generally how it works with these people. I can't believe the amount of that argument I constantly keep seeing. Like, I've been dealing also with a subset of heathenry that is pretty transphobic, and like the first thing I get told is like, oh, hey, I'm a gay man and my son is trans, therefore I can't be trans. It's like, no, fuck off.
Yeah, that's not how that works.
It's not how oppression works. Oh, and it's the same thing with the YSE, where like the one guy was like, oh, well, I'm trans and I don't think they're trans. It's like, okay, you're just a fucking token.
Yeah. When I see people like that, I just ask, so they picked you? Did they pick you?
And that's pretty much how it works, literally, is that certain people, like Blair White, who have big enough boobs, usually, and a cis-normative physique. Notice I said physique there because the term passing is just simply dumb.
Yeah, I agree.
And so, you have a pretty face, you have a nice pair of tits, and you get the grift off of the alt-right all day and basically be their token and be chosen. So long as apparently you can just stand them being transphobic, which I don't know how she stands that. I guess really pays the bills, and that's about it. But yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and yes, Gainer, unironically, and anarchism and voluntarism, that it is just feudalism. I just saw that comment. Yeah, no,
to me, it's even more chaotic than feudalism. Like, personally think feudalism would probably be a better system than anarcho-capitalism.
Yeah.
Because, like, I mean, at least within feudalism, you have, like, guilds and whatnot. And there's a family line, so you can usually, like, get some sort of work. Instead of, like, just being shot on the street immediately. Because you didn't pay your protection tax or something.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a really gross ideology. But yeah, so let's see. So yeah, there's oh yeah, he also one thing just I am passionate about language. Don't get me wrong. And as is Calon. If unless I'm speaking for you, Calon, you can correct me if I'm wrong there. But I'd say you're pretty passionate about language. But this they also have pretty good grammar overall. To me, just like I don't know, it just screams ableistic to me when people do that.
Oh, also, like, it's also just like, you criticize someone's grammar, you're not actually addressing what they're saying, just addressing how you think they should say it, which fits for a very assertive masculine personality that he's trying to constantly reinforce, because his own masculinity is so fragile that you could probably just shatter it with a flip of a switch.
Oh yeah, that's true. Let's see.
Also, it's a bit. Also, that's the other thing. By calling himself trans like that, it's a dog whistle.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just gonna say that because what he's doing is he's whistling to the idea that trans is a social construct. Therefore, anyone can be trans. And if that's the case, then gender means nothing, and so therefore, gender is clearly biological.
Yeah.
Basically, what he's saying. And for those who don't know, a gender is not a biological thing. It's a thing that can affect your biology, and it certainly does. In fact, a relationship is in some way cyclical. That is, basically, your biology affects your social, affects your biology. This is due in part to things such as like neuroplasticity, ideas and neurons that are arming your head, and all this other stuff. It is very fun, and maybe one day we'll go into it. But the short of it is that gender is a social construct, and sex, which, while also a social construct because it is an agreed upon term that denotes a classification of various traits, sex represents is a physical set of characteristics that are along a bimodal distribution. Well, it's not even really bimodal at this point. It's really just one peak. That one peak isn't even that different from one sex to another sex. There's actually a lot of similarities between the sexes. People don't think about.
Well, and I can definitely, like think in your own life, like a lot of times people assume women are supposed to look like this. People, and their various physiques and how spread apart that can be. Like there's a lot of petite cis guys and tall, strong cis girls. Like, so that I feel like that's
not even just that.
Oh, go ahead, Ken.
It's not only just that, it's also the fact that even in terms of intelligence and whatnot, so for example, women get told they're bad at math. So surprise, surprise, guess what? For many years that was actually the case. Now it's no longer the case. Now women can be just as bad at math. Now American women can be just as bad as American men at math.
Hey.
Equality. While in Japan, women are over there considered to be worse at math. Can just simply blow the American man out of the water when it comes to math. Kind of funny how that worked out, eh?
Yeah, that is funny. But yeah, to the rhetoric here, to that being a dog.
By the way, to answer a quick question to Tria. That was not something I expected to see. There is a theoretical mode of analysis where that is called altigender, is basically looking at gender from the perspective of someone who is autistic. But the way he says it there kind of makes me think it's some sort of dog whistle. It's actually something I need to investigate.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Well, seeing as I don't know. I definitely have my suspicions veering towards. I don't want to say anything definitively, but veering towards the dog whistle being the case because of what
Oh yeah, no,
happens.
I think the dog whistle is the case. I just don't know what the dog whistle is.
Yeah.
But given how the far right also likes to use the term autistic for like anything that is perceived as like dumb or something like that, it could be like a self-deprecating like sort of dog whistle, some sort. But yeah,
Well, and
that's
here.
how that.
Oh, go ahead, Ken.
You go ahead.
Okay. So yeah. Well, and here we see, in addition to the transphobic remarks being made, he also engages in some ableism here, because he tells this person, and I've talked to the people that are involved. Hello, everyone. That he interacted with. They're all okay with this being shown. Um, but yeah, when Jesse here says, "Nah, you call trans people their pronouns, even if they're assholes to you, Kokesh. Stop trying to make excuses for your transphobia." Because Adam said something above that was pretty problematic. He, you know, this person is on the spectrum and has it in their bio as using the term aspie, and Adam makes a joke. As you can see, it's pretty yikes. You can read it. I don't even. It's so mean. I don't even want to read it out loud.
Yeah, well, here's the other thing, by the way, and this is another thing that you commonly see among transphobes and right wingers, is that context matters until it doesn't, until it's inconvenient for them. So let's say, for example, that individual had aspie as a pronoun. And maybe if a left winger or someone who supports him comes along and uses it, it's fine. On the other hand, we have a right winger who would sooner see autistic people dead than he would be to actually support any treatment for us. It makes our lives easier.
Yeah, and then he just continues the same joke using something else in Jesse's bio. Because there's egoist in there, which is by which I think Jesse means post-leftism, not like the ANCAP variant. But yeah.
Egoism, for those I don't know, is basically a very selfish ideology.
Yeah, it definitely can be.
Basically, the way you sum it up, at least the moral philosophy, is you're out for yourself and that's it. And that's the most ethical thing.
Yeah. I mean, we can get into, like, I'm not a post-leftist myself, but we can get into Sterner another time. But generally speaking, yeah, that's what egoism is. Think like there's two variants though. There's the Max Sterner one, and then there's the Ayn Rand one. And the Ayn Rand one, just stay away from completely. Just don't even waste your time.
Yes. So yeah, this is. But anyhow, yes. Also, the application of Asperger's there as a gender. Again, another example of the sort of right-wing dog whistling. Basically say, hey, anything can be a gender, it's just a meaningless term. And now, it's a very meaningful term that just happens to be intersubjectively meaningful. It is meaningful among the people within a given community. If it weren't meaningful, then probably be feeling a lot less dysphoria.
Yeah. Oh, this is lovely. Look how Adam Kokesh, which, by the way, look up the word kokeshing and you'll find something fun when the stream's over. Look how he defends his joke pronouns. Another.
Don't need a paper if you want to be called blank. Follow these simple steps in your Twitter. Yeah, so the idea here in the dog whistle is that what he's complaining about is that gender is no longer an achieved status. It's just something you call yourself, which is inaccurate, sort of. Also a bit ableist. But the thing is that being trans is not as simple as just putting pronouns in your bio. There's social transition, there's having to deal with the dysphoria, the constant misgendering, constant dead naming, all this other stuff, which is just being brushed under the rug here because Adam here wants to push his right-wing ideology of, hey, gender is meaningless and we should make gender meaningful again. We won't say it directly.
Yeah. You know, it's funny too because Adam himself, like his ideology is right-winged, but there's some irony here because he doesn't view it his own ideology that way. He views it as transcending the left-right dichotomy, and I'm just thinking, Adam, if you really believe that, how much thought have you put into gender? If you really believe your ideology, which is ANCAPism, or voluntarism, I guess, but no, it's ANCAPism. If you really believe that your ideology transcends the dichotomy of left and right, how are you thinking about gender here? You know, like,
Well, also, why are you using so many dog whistles or indirect jokes that are only going to be funny to people who are of the right disposition?
yeah, and the
Because
most
that's the
toxic
other
element of the right too.
the right is just very unfunny.
Yep. I mean, they have one joke, and it's not even a joke. It's harassment of trans people.
Pretty much it, yeah, the helicopter joke. Like,
Every joke they
yes,
have is
yes,
just a
we get it.
variant of that.
And anyhow, yes, so here the only thing that Adam is signaling is, hey, gender's meaningless. We should make gender matter again. Look at all these trans people who all they had to do was put a pronoun in their bio, and that was it. Like, no, that's not how it works.
Yeah. Adam crack Kokesh. That's funny.
That makes a lot more sense if you look up the term Kokesh on Urban Dictionary. Just saying.
Oh yeah, that's fair.
And we have 12 viewers. Sweet. Hello, everyone. This is a lot of viewers for once. Eric, cool.
Yeah.
Screenshot.
Yeah, another screenshot here. I don't know who this Murray person is, but I plan to keep it that way. But they're having a conversation that's just lovely sarcasm.
You need to switch the picture on the stream.
Oh, huh?
You're showing the same picture on the stream.
Uh-oh. How about now?
Still shows you don't need a paper if you want to be called Mike.
Okay, what's happening here?
Yeah. Transphobia. Don't do transphobia. Doing transphobia isn't good.
No, it's not. Has the picture uploaded yet?
Alright, now we see it.
Okay, cool. So yeah. And just for the record, I don't really care at all about the Libertarian Party, but they're talking.
Oh, by the way, just a quick note about gender abolitionism. The problem with gender abolitionism is that when you really delve into the literature, it doesn't make any sense. Like, sure, you can abolish the category of man and woman, but we still need a cultural symbol by which to interact with each other. Given that we need this set of cultural symbolisms, then anything you construct after that is going to have the same effect as gender, making it ontologically indistinguishable from just creating another set of gender. Gender is something that we just simply organize. It's not really anything we necessarily have control over. It's our social currency, in other words.
Well, yeah,
So,
I can empathize. I can empathize with the gender abolitionist position, but do keep in mind that gender being binary is a pretty post-colonialist, uh, toxic Christianity concept in the first place. So
Right. In fact, most. Yeah, right. In fact, most cultures around the world tend to have some form of like third gender, fourth gender, or in the case of the Navajo, a fifth gender, which is kind of like our gender fluid, but kind of not. So, yeah, it's a very well established phenomenon, and in the end, gender abolitionism just doesn't work. If you want to hate yourself, Ozma, you can make yourself, you can go and read Ayn Rand. That's a sure guide to self-hate. I'm
yeah,
kidding.
but
But
yeah.
anyhow, so looking at this tweet, what we have here.
Oh, the irony of an ANCAP saying that left anarchism is contradictory. That's a side note, but yeah. So they are talking about
Yeah.
what they're talking about is in terms of just not being allowed to misgender people. Like that's the context here in the thread. But yeah, it's obvious by the way that large majority of these he calls leftists cretins. Our cretins are so-called left anarchists, which is also a contradiction in terms as their hostility to freedom of speech and probably other individual freedoms such as freedom of association, which, by the way, just so you know, if an ANCAP says freedom of association, they mean your right to be a bigot. Also prove that they're a cult. So apparently, according to this person that Adam agrees with, apparently, not allowing bigotry makes people in a cult. Intolerance of intolerance apparently is a cult.
Apparently, which people say that there's a paradox, the tolerance of paradox. It's not really it's not really a paradox when you think about it.
No, not at all.
Like, there's nothing contradictory within that, unless you make the assumption that tolerance means you have to tolerate everything. Which tolerance does not mean that. There are some things that you can be that you should be intolerant of. For example, putting arsenic in a well is generally something we want to be intolerant of. Last I checked.
Yeah.
Arsenic doesn't go well with drinking water. I don't know. Maybe I'm just out of place here, but it seems like there's a limit to freedom of action. Just saying. Which is why, like, the position, I think they call it free speech absolutism, is just dumb.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't respect.
It's basically saying that. It's basically saying those who are familiar with the Miller experiment to where you press a button and it shocks someone and you're pressing it because a superior told you to. It's basically arguing, hey, I should be allowed. I have the right to press that button. Shock that person to death, kind of deal. So,
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Well, and it's also just like.
So, funny thing, by the way, I see some chat about Bioshock. Funny thing is, Bioshock is basically the whole game is a critique of Ayn Rand. A video game can just tear down your entire philosophy. Maybe it's time to find a new philosophy.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good point. But yeah, like, it's also the case, just like people's right to be bigoted is not a right they have. Like, you don't have the right to speak in violent ways or run society in a way that disproportionately affects people against their will.
Here's the thing. Actually, funny enough, it goes back to libertarianism. See, there's this libertarian idea that your right to punch me ends at the point where your fist contacts my face. It's a nice analogy, I think. Mainly because if we take that, we can apply it to words as well.
Yeah.
Your right to speak out against something like that ends when that thing starts affecting me in an extraordinarily negative manner.
Exactly. It's the harm principle, which libertarians are supposed to agree with. They reformulated it in a sneaky way, calling it the non-aggression principle to try to make it more about property and legal ownership of property instead of anything ethical. And by the way, the non-aggression formulation of that principle, the way that libertarians use it, is a terrible principle. Because what Calon just described, the harm principle actually makes sense, whereas the non-aggression principle is usually described as don't hit, don't steal, don't lie. Okay, well, Emma Goldman kind of debunked that. And Emma Goldman had her problems too, don't get me wrong. I could go off on that too, but Emma Goldman debunked that before Murray Rothbard was even born. With, if with her quote of ask for bread, and if they don't give it, then take it because you need to live.
My right to live supersedes your right to withhold bread from me.
Yeah, that's not an exact quote, by the way, but that is the principle.
It's basically how the moral principle works. Because, yeah. It's basically, because basically by withholding that bread, they're committing a form of violence against you, not allowing you to eat. So, again, your fist might be indirect, but it's still a fist. It's still going towards your face. So, get out of the way and prepare to fight back.
Once ANCAPs understand implicit coercion exists, they stop being ANCAPs.
Mm-hmm. Let's move on to the next one.
Okie doke. Oh yeah, this one's fun. Haha. Okay, so Jake Angeli was covered by thankfully our friend Wolf the Red has a Twitter thread kind of debunking a lot of the stuff about this guy, but Jake Angeli is the QAnon shaman. That guy that was there on January 6th using symbols of a religion that is not his. Because he's a Christian who promotes QAnon, stuff like that. And I watched most of Adam Kokesh's video on this to kind of get what his take was, and apparently Kokesh is not QAnon, but he didn't speak particularly poorly of this guy.
He's anti-statist, so he's going to support anything. He's an anti-statist capitalist, which, while a contradictory position, if we allow for a third kind of logic here, basically any sort of movement against the government that isn't left is going to be something that he desires.
Yeah, it was weird. He was simultaneously... he did say a couple of nice things about BLM, which was that, I wasn't totally expecting that, though his tone seemed passive-aggressive. But then he immediately after was like, he kind of gave the impression he thought that the January 6th attack was, and it was an attack, let's not call those people protesters. He kind of saw...
Yeah, if it were Antifa, it would have been done a lot more, would have been a lot more professional, to be honest.
Oh, yeah. But the...
You wouldn't have idiots going out there and saying, hey, I'm so-and-so from Tennessee.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, adding that name to the no-flight list.
Yeah, exactly. But Kokesh kind of viewed the January 6th thing as somewhere in between. It wasn't totally clear, but somewhere in between totally based and awesome and a false flag. Probably for his position, he kind of has to believe both. But interestingly, both Jake Angeli, who is a Christian, not a heathen, by the way. Just gonna shout out Wolf for exposing that on Twitter. But and Adam both refused the anthrax vaccine. And from what I can tell, Adam kind of claimed, hey, I'm only anti some vaccines, I'm not anti all vaccines. Kind of seemed from his position that he was implying things about the COVID vaccine, which wouldn't be surprising, seeing as he not only voiced sympathy towards anti-maskers, but claimed that he tries to go without masks whenever he can, in a really self-congratulatory, haha, libertarians were right about the science, mask not work, please wear a fucking mask, like, and stay safe.
Yeah, so so if I'm going to steelman a libertarian position here, problem is that a libertarian position immediately calls for wearing a mask. The reason why is because your fist becomes the literal air droplets that you breathe. Yeah. About self-responsibility. He doesn't want to take responsibility, which, hey, no, it's just going to go out there and say he's not a libertarian.
No, he's not.
It's just a right-wing nut job, but yeah. Well, actual libertarian philosophy, it's, hey, if I cough on someone and that person gets sick, that's on me. I'm responsible for that. So therefore, because especially since there's a pandemic and it's generally known that there's a pandemic, so therefore in order to mitigate that risk as well as to protect myself, I need to wear a mask.
Yep. Yeah, it's personal responsibility as well. So it's like, but I would also say that, like, you really can't be okay with, the right effectively stole the word for the most part, so I typically just use leftist or anarchist, but you're really, like, by actual definition, because of capitalism being a coercive system, you really, by what it actually means, can't be a libertarian and not explicitly on the left. Those are mutually exclusive, like, but the right did co-opt the term, and here we are.
Well, the thing is that, and let's get into a little bit of anarchist theory, is that generally difference comes between negative and positive liberty. Mm-hmm. So your liberty to do something versus someone else's liberty to not have that thing, or be, like, constrained or protected from you, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And on the right wing, whenever you see them mention liberty, it's always in some form of bigotry. That baker has a right not to sell that cake to that gay couple, kind of deal. No. It's never, that gay couple should have a right to have a cake, because being gay does not mean that you're going to hit someone. But the emphasis is on the liberty of the person who is doing the oppression, not on the oppressed. Technical libertarianism, you're supposed to apply it to everyone.
Exactly. It's liberty, or it should be liberty for all or liberty for none, not liberty for the oppressor. Literally, that's counterintuitive. It's also telling that they do that thing where they confuse decentralization with states' rights, which states' rights, if you're unfamiliar, is that's pretty frickin' dog whistly.
So also, here's the other thing: states' rights supposed to be like the state's right to choose stuff versus, like, the federal government imposing stuff. States' rights only became an issue because states wanted to keep their slaves and the federal government didn't want them to.
Exactly. Whereas anarchists have been talking about decentralization since anarchism has been coined, but that's not what it means. It means the decentralization of power, trying to get everyone free and equal, not what right, quote, libertarians want it to be. So yeah, this Kokesh guy is at least vaguely sympathetic with Jake Angeli, who, again, not a heathen, is a Christian. Those symbols aren't his. He should probably, I want to keep the channel, so I'm not going to say what I think there. I don't like Jake Angeli, and I don't think any responsible person does. It's also interesting to note that Adam's position on the January 6th thing, seeing as, he thinks it's somewhere in between based and awesome and a false flag, seeing as he literally did activism where, in I think 2013, he carried a gun to Pennsylvania Avenue, and some of the people at January 6th almost certainly would have been in his audience at the time because of the connection between ANCAPs and the alt-right. So, there's a lot to be said there. But yeah.
Yes, bringing it back around full circle. Should be pretty clear by now that the guys are outright to trash. And that basically everything he's doing here is performative masculinity. This whole shtick about being resilient and whatnot is basically a way of stroking his own masculine ego.
Yeah.
Classically, I might add, because there are some versions of masculinity which are not toxic.
Exactly.
I know it's amazing.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, in our societal structure and whatnot, toxic masculinity tends to be emphasized. Rugged individualism who doesn't take anything, words are just water off a duck's back kind of thing. That seems to be, this is what that produces.
Exactly.
That's the main point here.
Dude, bro.
Main point isn't this guy. This guy is irrelevant by the vast scheme of things. He's irrelevant. Sure, he has a lot of Twitter followers. Sure, he may spread bigotry online. In the end, in terms of day-to-day life, it's not going to affect you.
No.
The thing that's going to affect you, though, the social forces that created this idiot. Those social forces are ultimately what needs to be combative. Yes, men can cry. Yes, men can should show emotion. Yes, men should care, etc., etc. And ultimately rebuilding sort of this conceptualization of masculinity to be something that is not so freaking toxic.
Agreed. I mean, I won't say definitively whether I know or not that he is alt-right, but he's implicit with it, which is just...
He's alright. We can be definitive here. He's alright. Like, his rhetoric and whatnot, his emphasis on traditional norms, that pretty much puts him alright.
For all intents and purposes, yeah. I'm not going to disagree. But yeah, the problem either way is definitely his rhetoric fosters and empowers a culture of toxic masculinity, and he's not the only person that talks that way. He is a irrelevant joke. Please make lots of jokes about him. Feel free. Like I said, he has actually been a lolcow for the left for quite some time. If you look into his history, it's pretty cringe. So he's totally irrelevant. But it's
kind of like Liberty Hangout is another way to think about it.
No, exactly.
Liberty Hangout, as much as Liberty Hangout is a little bit more of an issue in terms of Caitlin Brennan and what she does, but at the end of the day, it doesn't fucking matter. None of these people matter.
Not at all.
What matters are the social forces that they perpetuate throughout society. It's like an interlacing web of horror, if we're being honest here. Alone, these people don't matter. Together, they spread bigotry and ultimately lead to, well, we've seen this before. We saw it in 1930s Germany. People mocking Hitler, making jokes about Hitler. And then what ended up happening to all of them once the Nazis got together? They all went to the gas chambers.
Yeah.
So with that, I think this is a good place to conclude, don't you, Katia?
I do indeed, Calon. And just, don't be transphobic and don't foster cultures that promote transphobia. And call it out when you see it.
Exactly. But out. keep fighting it. And remember, toxic masculinity does not need to be a thing. It just is a thing because society is fucked up and fucked up its definition of masculinity.
Well said. I concur.
All right. We still alive?